I'm joined now by a key architect of the Iran nuclear deal. Ernest Moniz served as Secretary of Energy under President Obama. He is now the CEO and president of the Energy Futures Initiative. Secretary Moniz, good morning. Thank you for being on with us.
Morning, Hallie.
So the State Department is calling this more of a first step rather than a breakthrough. As somebody who helped put this together, do you agree? And is it a welcome first step in your view?
Oh, I think it's quite welcome. The last 4 years have put us quite simply behind in every dimension of the attempt to make sure Iran has no nuclear weapon, and ultimately to resolve some of the regional problems that, frankly, we had hoped would have been worked on in these 4 years. Also, the negotiation, the diplomacy being reactivated with Iran. It's very important, and I think very important to realize it will be step by step. It's not like there's some, I believe, some magic solution overnight, but we will have to take reciprocal steps with Iran to get back to where we were, and then to keep going on to agreements that resolve all the other terribly difficult issues we have with Iran's regional behavior.
There's also a question of whether Iran itself comes back to the negotiating table, right? The Biden administration says it will accept that invitation to meet with the countries that were initially part of the 2015 deal, rather. Do you think, does Iran come back to the table, and should the U.S. lift economic sanctions to get that to happen?
That's part of the step-by-step, even the first step to get sitting at the same table. I think Iran will come back because they need to, and I think we want to, in order to relieve some of these regional tensions, while again achieving the essential goal of making sure of having the world be sure that Iran is not reinvigorating a nuclear weapons program. I also want to add that I think it's very important with the Europeans, but it's equally important, in my view, that the administration, and I believe some of this has been going on, having discussions with our own Congress on both sides of the aisle, with the Europeans, but also with our Middle East allies, because frankly, especially going to a so-called JCPOA plus, we need all of those players in line. But I wouldn't let Iran off the hook either. Frankly, just as we saw a bipartisan divide in this country back in 2015, 2016, let's face it, Iran also has its internal divide between the Rouhani administration and the Revolutionary Guard. And so both sides are going to have to provide some evidence that we can provide a stable solution for moving forward.
It will come as no surprise to you, as you lived through the Republican pushback initially to what happened in 2015, that there is GOP pushback now as well. You've got President Biden sort of as part of the diplomatic process withdrawing a demand that the UN put in place some tough new sanctions against Iran. He also lifted travel restrictions on some Iranian officials. You've got Senator Tom Cotton tweeting that Iran is, in his words, exploiting President Biden's weakness. Congresswoman Liz Cheney is accusing the administration of emboldening a terrorist regime, in her words, with these moves. How do you respond to that?
I think it's showing President Biden's strength, because diplomacy is about showing strength. Now, the question is, can he bring together the parties? Again, I'm not suggesting across the aisle Republicans, Democrats are going to agree on some solution. But I think the key is, and it goes back to 2015 and 2016, we have to be able to demonstrate that there's a pathway to going to the JCPOA and then beyond the JCPOA to discuss those regional issues, those missile issues, et cetera. I think that's how we bridge the partisan divide. And also, hopefully, bring along, at least to a certain extent, our Middle Eastern allies.
I only have a couple of seconds left, but I do want to ask you quickly about the U.S. rejoining the Paris climate deal. As we reported with my colleague Josh Letterman a moment ago, you said earlier this year that we have to earn our place back at the table as far as the U.S. Is this a step towards doing that?
Absolutely. The almost immediate appointment of John Kerry after the election was a demonstration of the commitment. But as I said, that international leadership that John hopefully will help restore has to be based on a foundation of what we do domestically. We have to walk the talk to have the credibility to bring the world along the lines of the net zero emissions commitment by mid-century that we need. And just as an aside, of course, the kinds of things that we saw in California last August and now in Texas and other parts of the country now with much more extreme weather, it's giving the public an idea of what the stakes are for addressing the climate crisis.